set to steal the show. Adrenaline's in overload. It's heating up now, and time is running out. Who's gonna take the crown? Let's go and watch the breakthrough. It's a matter of fact. You better brace for impact. Show me what you can do. It's about to go down, and there's no turning back. You better brace for impact.
Hello and welcome to this very special edition of ReActivate, the Extreme Robots TV podcast. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by the captain of the Wolfpack. I'm not going to say his other title yet. I'll leave that to later on. I'll build it up to it. But Mr. John Findlay is with us.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, John. Look, I want to talk obviously about what happened in Gloucester because it's definitely caught the imagination of a lot of people. The social media has been blowing up. It was an amazing event. But before we do that, obviously it's the end of the season. How are you feeling about the season that's just passed?
It's been a long season, but I'm actually really sad that it's over because we've just got going and we're raring to go kind of thing. But obviously we started the year building lots of robots. We ended last year, if you remember, with Ripper 6 fighting Ogre Kill. I was going to retire it because I'd already decided I wanted to build a new Ripper. So I had a busy winter building robots for myself, building robots for other people as well. And obviously then debuted Ripper 8, which caught the imagination of people. They liked the look of it. It went straight in and won fights. I think it won its very first fight. And so people sort of stopped and looked at it and went, oh, actually, that's pretty good. And then throughout the year, I've had Gremlins with it. And then finally got to the final result. But I mean, the Gremlins, there was, I'm supposed to be a professional. I've been doing this 25 years. But one of the Gremlins was I'd gone fancy. Normally, I put the weapon switches in the robots and I just cable tie them to a bar or whatever. I don't really worry about it. I thought, do you know what? I'll put it in a nice aluminium box. What I didn't know is every time I was putting the lid on the box, the switch was actually clamping itself down and actually shorting on the metal of the aluminium box. So I've gone through like 20 switches throughout the year. And I have to do a shout out to Dave Weston because it was the last event in Maidstone. I'd blown another switch and Weston went, well, are you sure it's not shorting on the metal body of that? I went, oh my God, that's what it's been all the way through. And Axel as well had exactly the same thing. Another brand new robot, went fancy with this aluminium box. That's blown switches throughout the year as well. So yeah, credit to Weston that he actually saved the day.
Oh, Weston's a legend. He always does such a good job with things like that. We're very lucky to have him in the robot fighting community. But yeah, no, Ripper 8, you built so many robots at the start of the year, and I was a little bit concerned because obviously it's a lot of work that you do already with Extreme Robots. But then, Axel's sort of having another outing, and you said you had Ripper 8 and you had the Hungry Boys, an awful lot of robots, and they're not all the same. It's not like you're just building sort of a generic flipper and doing the same thing. They're all different. So how do you split your time at the shows to do that?
Well, I mean, they are different, but the principles are the same. So you've still got motor speed controllers. Hungry Boar is a simple robot. There's not. It's got CO2 jets as a weapon, but in terms of complexity, that's like a fun robot to build. It's got 4 motors, it's got 4 speed controllers and a pack of batteries, and you take the lids off and you can see everything. So obviously, the simpler you make the robot, the less there is to go wrong, and that's testament really to Hungry Boar that even just in Gloucester, it's still doing really, really well. With Axel and Ripper 8, the problem is that they are different and their wiring's different. So when I've been going through the switches, I'm opening up this box, not knowing, it's shorting through, going, why is it blowing? What's going on? And each has their own little quirks. But Ripper 8's been through a big development throughout the years that people wouldn't see. Just before Maidstone, it's been not driving perfectly. The wheels were a little bit, bit too far back. The weight distribution wasn't right. So even just before Maidstone, I actually took the whole robot apart, chopped the chassis, moved the wheels forward by 25 millimeters, just that much. And that really transformed the robot in terms of how it drives now. And so it's been little tweaks throughout the year that I've been doing and concentrating on it. But obviously Axel and Ripper 8 have been the ones that have really been focused on. Ripper 6 is like the old faithful robot that every now and again gets a bit of TLC but just keeps going. But then, what's interesting, the run up to the actual Gloucester event, Axel and Ripper 8 were actually working really well because they had a really good event in Maidstone. It was actually Ripper 6 that had. I spent 2 whole days on Ripper 6. It had a strip down. We had there was one of the wheels was smashed from an event in Dublin that needed repairing. There was a gear that's gone. And I think that's what's happened this year is that this year I had more time to devote in between the shows, and I've spent hours and hours. I think one of the events I was up till like 3 o'clock in the morning before we loaded, making sure it was tip top. And I think that's really the difference between having, a reliable robot is not turning up to an event with any issues. Whereas last year and the year before, when I've been struggling because I've been working away, I would turn up with robots that were completely bodged and on their last legs. And when you go to the champs, it's all about durability. It's all about sustain. Can you sustain those fights? Because you don't have a lot of time to repair in between. Like on that final day, we did the semi-finals and it was straight into the final. And luckily there was no issues. So that's what it's all about, preparation.
I was going to say, actually, with the sort of the development race, if you want to call it that, I think this year more than any other, I've really seen that. And I think, to be honest, a lot of that's because we have things like Rate My Robot now and all of the backstage interviews with Ellie that we have. We're getting more detail that you can't always see in that 2-hour show about what goes into these robots. And I know I've spoken to you guys about the work that you've done, and obviously Will and Michael and Craig and lots of other people that have been working really, really hard this year to keep their robots moving forward. Do you think that's partly to do with, obviously we have the team competition, but because it was weighted as well on seeding for the tournament, people couldn't really take their foot off the gas because placing in that tournament, well, did prove to be crucial, to be honest.
This year has probably been one of the most, I wouldn't say serious years, but every fight counted because, yes, we had the teams, but you were always keeping an eye on your seeding for the final because we only took the top 16 into the champs, whereas previously anybody went into the champs and it was fine. So even when we went to Maidstone, of course, we had Spellbound, Axel, and Leviathan, 3 robots that were all at the bottom of the table to get into that last 16, and it actually went to the wire. And there was height of emotions between Spellbound and Leviathan because it came down to the very last fight. Bearing in mind how many fights we've done throughout the year, it came down to that very last fight in that tag team. Whoever won got into the champs kind of thing. And me personally, trying to get all the robots competing with the teams, but also having one eye on the seedings to make sure you're in the top 16 as well. It just meant that every fight throughout the year counted. You couldn't let your foot off the gas because it all had a knock-on effect to the champs. And I think that really is what's improved the fights. It's improved people's commitment. It's improved people in between the shows, including myself, to make sure that I go to events tip-top because, before you could go to an event, you can have fun. And if your robot doesn't work, it's not a problem. You don't want to lose, but everything had an effect. And you could see the difference when we got to Gloucester. As Danny said, there was a bit of eerie silence there because everyone then went into serious mode. I certainly did. I was in serious focus. This is what we've done the whole year, all the hours and blood, sweat and tears, building new robots. That's what it all comes down to because effectively, we want to be champion. We want to be number one.
Yeah, it was really fascinating. There was a moment backstage where I bumped into Jason after he just won a fight with Thor. And I've never really seen him like that because he's always so casual and chilled out. He seems almost like horizontal there, but he said he was shaking. And I've never really seen that side to the Roboteers. So I got a bit of an insight into, what it would have been like on, the Robot Wars days. And this felt, from our point of view, the closest we got to that major event and that competition that everyone really, really wanted to win. I think, it's as much down to it was quite an open field. From 1 to 16, there was no easy rides through that competition.
No.
And I think everyone could feel it. You saw the draw, then you knew the second round draw as we did that beforehand as well. And there was no simple pathway through that competition. And I do think it brought out the best of everyone. It was really fascinating to watch as somebody who, wouldn't have a clue about engineering like I do, but has been around it a long time. And I think the audience could feel it as well. There was a real tension. And every time a fight would finish and we get the results, you could feel that release, not just from the Roboteers, but from our audience as well. They could feel the importance. And it was just it was an amazing weekend to be part of. And I was so proud to be there and also to see all the hard work from all of the Roboteers. But just before we get to that actual competition itself, it was something Oliver actually picked up on commentary really well, actually. You seemed to have a real gear change in from Newcastle. As a team, with yourself and Alex as the Wolfpack, you were picking up victories. And do you think that momentum really gave you the confidence? You know, I know I have a joke, old man Findlay, haven't won anything since I was 12. But on a serious note, though, do you think that that momentum coming from those wins in Newcastle and showing that you could beat Inferno and Michael, who was, you know, quite frankly running away with it at that stage, gave you a bit of confidence and a bit more energy to go and work on those robots to get them ready for those champs?
Oh, 100%. I mean, confidence is everything when you go into a competition. But also confidence brings pressure. So from Newcastle onwards, I don't want this podcast to be all talking about the forks because people will be fed up of it. But
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard it mentioned once.
But I mean, that was really a game changer because when you build a robot, flipper, axe, it doesn't really matter. It's always been about the ground game. So if we go back to when I was in my heyday, 2011, Ripper had its flappy panels on the front, and I was the only one that was really doing it. So I had the ground game, and that's what led to most of my success. Obviously, Michael's then come along with Eruption, and nobody can ever get through, underneath the front of Eruption, and that's why he's so dominant. And then, of course, Implosion came along, and he had his flappy panels on the front, and again, nobody could get underneath the front of it. When you can't get underneath the front of a robot, as we've now just seen when people are on the back foot, you then have to adjust your driving style, because you have to then try and drive around it. And B, what happens then is the more and more you can't get anywhere near it, the more and more frustrated you get. And the more frustrated you get, the more mistakes you make, and it's a vicious circle. And then when you take something like Eruption, it's doing all the flipping all the time. So it's not the one getting flipped all over the place. So that's why it's one of the most reliable robots, because it's not taking the damage. Now, you read online about flippers are boring and they don't do any damage, but they do. It doesn't matter what robot you've got, 110 kilos being thrown through the air, hitting a wall, hitting a steel floor, that impact has to be absorbed. And obviously when you're building your robots, you've got to now shock mount everything, because the steel floor compared to the wooden floors really change things. So that's really what it's all about, the ground game. And Jason with Thor was very interesting because, we went to Maidstone and Ripper 8 versus Thor. You can fight Jason because Jason's always been erratic in his driving. He literally loves to drive his robots at 1,000,000 miles an hour. He drives it like he stole it. And we did that in Maidstone. And obviously he got beaten because he couldn't get anywhere near the front of the robot. And he went away and he admits that, he went on his computer and he designed some forks for the competition. But again, I've been around the block. I knew that people were going to come back with forks. And I knew that I'd have to have tactics to how to combat the forks, and I thought about it. A normal event, maybe I wouldn't really pay so much attention, but I watched the fights back from Maidstone, I watched the robots that I thought I was going to be fighting, and I made my choices of how I thought I was going to fight it. And then when we got into the fight with Thor with the forks, I implemented what I wanted to do, and it was successful. But, if you take Jason, for example, there's only really me and Jason and Trevor Wright, which are the three OGs. We're in the original series, and we've got all the new kids on the block, Will, Michael, from the latest ones. So, me and Jason are really good friends. So I think actually what's quite proud is that we were in the semi-final together, and we've still got it. And Jason, you saw a difference in Jason for the first ever time. Instead of just racing around the arena, he got on that floor panel, and he wasn't moving. It was like,
no, it was fascinating. Yeah. It was really fascinating. I had to go and check he was driving because it was a different person the way he handled that arena. I'm so used to just him sort of almost like the old Buckaroo thing with the horse thing with the legs going back up with the robot going up and down. And he was so controlled.
But again, it means a lot to him as well. That shows the commitment. It shows that, he's spent money, time, effort on his robot. And he's thought about tactics. He's thought about how he was going to win. Now, going in with the Thor and Thor and Ignition, my money was on Thor. I thought Thor could win it, but only if it calmed down. And I said to him beforehand, just make sure you're calm. I didn't think it would. I thought it'd be tearing around the arena, and he implemented his tactics to a T, and everyone went, "What? What's just happened? Jason hasn't moved off a floor panel." It was brilliant to watch. Brilliant to watch. It really was.
Yeah, it was fascinating, actually. Now, we're going to talk obviously a lot about the victories and the journey to the final, but also because it is a competition, there's also some heartbreaking moments as well where, you know, robots are getting beat in the first round. And I've got to say, I'm so grateful to our roboteers for, you know, because they travel all around the country, you know, particularly like Alex and Clive and people like that coming from, you know, Newcastle, and some of the roboteers coming even further north than that, with people like you and turning up at these events. They've got no guarantees they're going to get a win or get through. And they stuck around, and that, you know, and it's hard to see them lose. You sort of go, can I work out a way to do a melee to get people back in? Because you feel bad that people are out, but then that's the competition, and that's what makes it so special. And I think probably more so than anything we've ever done, and I'm sure on a lot of other competitions as well, there was no last chance saloon. It was you were in or you were out, which put that extra pressure on. But, you know, credit to all of those roboteers that came along from all over the country, and there was no guarantees all weekend.
No, I mean, you know, there was heartbreak, there was tears, there was emotions. You know, I had to fight my son. That was pretty hard. But that's because of the passion. You know, we do this as a hobby. We have a lot of fun. And I don't think we've ever really had a competition that, even though, you know, we've had lots of competitions, I just think this one, because of the way that Extreme Robots is going with the audiences, and it was a packed out crowd, we've had such a great year, we've got the team element and everything, it just meant so much to everybody. I mean, a shout out to even like the Spellbound team. You know, where did they come from? They weren't even, I don't think Spellbound was even built until halfway through the year, but their commitment, and they are on a shoestring budget. You know, they brought that robot out, it got pummeled by implosion, they couldn't afford to buy new motors, they had to save up, so they missed an event. Yet it came back and worked so strong, and they got that final place to get into the grand finals. And even then, they turn up. You know, I'm fighting it with Ripper 8. They turn up with these massive forks, and I'm thinking
they weren't subtle. It was like half the robot, I think.
I was like, what the hell am I going to do with this? But again, you know, I knew that someone was going to do it. I thought about the tactics, and I actually think long forks aren't the way to go, because I think, you know, you can then drive around the side of them. And, you know, it's a bit of a blur now, the fight, but I'm pretty sure it was, well, they got stuck in the floor after 1 second anyway. That wasn't very good. But yeah, I mean, that...
Ironically, I think they would have caused you more problems. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I'm just, you know, it's just me. But I think they are such an interesting robot, and everyone backstage has such respect for them and what they do, and also the power of that robot. If it pushes you around, it's got some push behind it. But I actually think they probably would have caused you more problems had they not had the forks on. Ironically, apart from the arena, because obviously the arena does get a bit of a kick, and it's got 110 kilos being thrown at it constantly. Yeah. But that I almost felt quite bad for them, because I was like, you know, in hindsight, would you have done that? Is one of those things. But, you know, it's probably a bit of relief for you, mate, because that's a banana skin facing Spellbound.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you know, there was more pressure on that because it was an unknown quantity than it was fighting other robots. And also, you know, they went 3 to an activate and they got stuck. And I'm stood by the side of the guy. He's a real passionate, lovely guy. And he's going, no, I can't believe it. I don't want to go out. This is the worst way to go out. And I'm like, I was so torn. So I drove around the back of it, and in a normal competition, I'd just be reversed into it, just jab it right into that seam so he can't get out. And I was like, I can't do it to them. So I freed them and made a bit of a fight out of it. And, you know, half of me is like, well, I need to test to make sure the robot's working fine anyway. And it'll be interesting for the future. What I was thinking about then is next year, you know, because apparently it's going 6-wheel drive. It's going to be even more push next year.
Oh, they want weapons on it and everything. So, flamethrowers, the lot,
Let's do a bit of research. Let's see if you can outdrive it. Let's see how reliable it is, and have a bit of fun with it. And, I had a bit of fun. And I'm thinking, why am I doing this? I should have just said, no, that's it. It's competition, dead serious. But I like to entertain. You know, the audience have come paid. They want to see a fight. I didn't want him to be knocked out of the competition for that. But I think potentially he was already counted out before I freed him. I don't know. But I was having a lot of fun anyway.
Yeah, and I think everyone appreciated that. And I think they would have done as well, and nobody wanted them to go out in that manner. It was always going to, they knew it was, they were posting on social, they knew what they were getting into in terms of that, but they were, they wanted to be part of that 16. It's better to be there and grow. So that's brilliant. Now, I want to talk about one of your first round fights, actually, because for me, it wasn't your winning fight that showed what this competition was going to do. It was actually the robot that you lost in that first round, which was Axel, which, we all know is a really solid robot, but we wouldn't have necessarily said it was going to be one that you'd win with in that first round. But it was so close to beating one of Michael's robots. It kind of caught us all off guard, and it kind of put everyone on notice, I think, that this competition is not necessarily going to go the way that, the stories are written. And if you go online, it's, this person's going to win it because they always do and all that sort of thing. And credit to Michael, because Michael wins a lot because he is that damn good. But everyone was bringing their A game, and it was, as I said, there wasn't an easy ride. And watching Axel take one of Michael's robots to the extreme was fascinating. That must have given you confidence as well that weekend.
Confidence, but frustrating. I'd just come off the back of Maidstone, where I'd fought Ripper 8 and Eruption, took him to the last sort of 30 seconds, and then the gas froze up. But it wasn't actually, no, my switch had shorted out on the aluminium box again. But thanks to Western, we haven't got that problem now. But yeah, so Axel obviously put the forks on the front, had an idea that I would win the ground game, get underneath him. But something weird happened at the start of the event. I don't know if it was temperature or what, because we had Axel, it just froze up. And we had the same with Beast, with my son's robot. He was fighting Saint. And for some reason, his flipper didn't work either. It was just like a gremlin that happened. And so frustrated, and I was like, when can I have some luck? I don't think I dominated the fight. I think it was close, but he definitely couldn't get underneath the front, and I'd hit him a few times. And obviously, I think it was 18 seconds left, and then to get flipped, and then it wouldn't self-right. And what's really weird is that we turned the robot back over, and there was nothing wrong with it. It just literally was frozen. It warmed up a bit, and the axe fired. And then throughout the rest of the event, it worked perfect. It never happened again. But looking at the draw, what would have happened is that if I'd have beaten Eruption, obviously it would have been an upset. But then I would have been fighting myself anyway. So it sort of made it okay that it wouldn't, one of the robots would have only got through anyway. But the thing is with that last 16 is that I think if you looked at all of the fights, there wasn't any real fights that I went, that's going to win, that's going to win, that's going to win. Because on a different day, it could go another way. And we saw that. The competition was fierce.
Well, what we've learnt this year, and we say it on commentary all the time, really, is, you've got to win the 3 minutes, because we have so many judges' decisions, and there are so many fights, and you've been involved in enough of them yourself. And I know Alex has fallen foul of this a few times this year as well, where, if you would have stopped the fight at 2.5 minutes, you're winning. But something seems to change in that last 30 seconds. And I think, again, that's testament to somebody like Michael over the years, that his robots have been so reliable that if he had been losing, he comes to town in that last 30 seconds when other people maybe have had those gremlins that we use all the time. So, it really played into that. You had to win a 3-minute battle. And I think most of the fights obviously went that way, if not in the last 30 seconds or so. So it was really fascinating and watching people's tactics. But look, let's talk a little bit about your journey, because obviously you lost Axel in the first round, but got through with Ripper 6 and Ripper 8. But as you get through to those later rounds, you then run foul of having to fight people that bring different emotional qualities. And you briefly mentioned it earlier on, because you did find that you then had to face Ollie.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how this was going to play out, because you had effectively a decision to make, because you were facing... who were you facing? You had Eruption, wasn't it, on the other fight?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had Ollie first, and then you had Eruption. And so I was like, how is he going to think here? Is he going to, try and push Ollie through and just hope that he beats Eruption? Or does he think I might not be able to beat Eruption, so I've really got to beat Ollie and try and get that robot through? I was thinking all of those things because obviously, you're a parent, but you're also a competitor. And I also know Ollie wants you to be that competitor at the event as much as he wants you to be a parent. So there were so many conflicting thoughts. And I think actually, if you go back, and for those that are watching this, go back and watch John's interview, just play the sad Hulk music throughout the whole thing. Because
No, don't. It'll make me cry.
it was the most difficult interview I think I've seen for a winner. you know, and it's also harder because obviously Ellie's like, hey, yeah, John, you won your fight and all that. And she does. And it's all chipper. And John's about to have a breakdown on camera. So, John, just talk us through that one. What was the conversations between, or did you even have any conversations with Ollie before the fight about, you know, any of those conversations? And obviously your whole family's there. So how did that all play out?
It's a real tough one because obviously I'm Ollie's number one supporter, and I've worked my backside to make sure that Beast is the best it can be. You know, we spent the summer on it together, and he's really got into it now. You know, he kept running out of gas. He's like, what can I do? We spent days and days. We put an extra small gas bottle in it, and we'd had conversations before about he predicted that if he was going to lose the competition, he predicted it would be me.
Wow.
And the last time we fought, he stood by the side of me and he's like, good luck on the win, you know, well done for the win, because he doesn't think he can beat me. Ollie struggles a little bit with confidence in terms of he doesn't realise how good he is, and he doesn't realise how respected he is. And that might be because he's my son and I'm me, you know, and he's trying to make his own way in life kind of thing. But of course I was conflicted because I'd spent a lot of time on Ripper 6. The dream, obviously, for anybody is to get 2 robots to a final. You put robots in there, you're never going to throw a fight. And he knows that I'm a fierce competitor. I'm as competitive as it comes. And even when he's there, as soon as Activate happens, I'm going to go for it. But he's good. And, you know, I've watched the fight back, and actually it's different to how I remember it because I thought it was a little bit closer. And obviously there's the forks thing, that he's very anti-forks. He doesn't want to put forks on his robot, and then he lost because, you know, I had forks, but it was tactics as well. And then afterwards, it was just like, it was bittersweet because throughout last year he got through to the quarterfinals, and all he's been saying is, I just want to get to the semi-finals. Don't want to win. Don't care if I lose the semi-finals. I want to go further. And knowing that I was the one that was going to stop him doing that, it was a conflict, but I'm a competitor. I'm a fierce competitor, and Ripper 6 I've spent a lot of time on, and I know that Ripper 6 has had a bit of a redesign. I've converted it to low pressure, and I think it's still got it. I've proved it's still got it. It needs a bit of TLC because it's old and battered and twisted. And I just went into that fight the same as I went into any other fight, fighting Beast, fighting Eruption. My tactics were my tactics, and it was close. And then when I won, it was just like, okay. And of course, I'm emotional about it. And like you say, you go there, Ollie's fighting back the tears because he's emotional as well. And then he's like, yeah, you won. I'm like, yeah. And then afterwards, we'd done the interview. We hugged it out. We went outside. We had a chat. And I think for Ollie, you know, the pressure was on and he lost it. But that's character building. Because I always say, you know, what's more important about winning is how you lose. And I've said that all the way through, you know, and he's had some real heartbreaks in terms of fights that he's lost. And that was the one where he will learn from that. He will grow as a person, grow as a man, grow as a competitor. And what it's done is it motivated him, because now we sat at dinner last night. We've got a new name for his robot. We're rebuilding a brand new robot, and he wants his own identity and he wants to come back stronger. And I'm super proud because, you know, there are others which don't take losing very well, and he took it like a champ.
No, it was amazing to see because it's got 2 different emotions coming there, family and also going out of the competition, and he is brilliant. And look, we know this year everyone assumes that Ollie's going to be in the Wolfpack in the future, but Michael's not going to let him go, and that just shows how thought of he is by the. You know, I always say it online. The GOAT, really, which has been Michael, particularly with Eruption. The fact that he doesn't want to lose him as a team member shows how well thought of, and I'm sure all of the teams would like Ollie in their side.
I sent him a text message yesterday. It was at college, and I came up with an idea for his new robot. So I did a sketch, came up with a name. I WhatsApped to him and said, if you come and join the Wolfpack, you get 10% more effort from me. And he sent one back saying, I'd love to, but I'm loyal to Michael. I'm Team Inferno. I can't get him. I really want him, but I can't get him to come over because I think him, new robot, Beast, his other one, I think would be really strong with TR4. What a team.
Yeah, he don't like losing though, John, so...
Well, you know.
No, that's fair enough, but that's great, and I love to see this dynamic with the team thing, but we'll keep on with the competition for the time being. So, obviously, that emotion kicks in, but then you've got to face you know, the Darth Vader of robot combat, the one that nobody wants to fight. It's the Grand Master. It's you know, everyone's favorite. It wins everything because it is brilliant. And you've got to go in and do that, and in an early stage as well. You know, that's a semi-final final situation, really. I mean, I had you both down as potential winners. I mean, obviously, I could feel the vibe backstage knowing that you two were facing each other with Michael and yourself. And it actually, I think it lifted a few people backstage because they know one of the big hitters is going out.
Yeah.
And it opens up the draw, which is brilliant. And that's what you want. And again, it just goes to show that we did this the right way. There was no, I'm sure some people online, oh, you know, John got to the final and this. No, completely by the books. We did it all properly by the way the Roboteers wanted it. Some of them fell foul of it.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant. But how did you feel going into that one? Obviously, you know, probably adrenaline's pumping at that stage.
Pressure, nerves, excitement, and the dream. You know, there's so many people that don't want me to win because of who I am. I've won lots, but all of a sudden there was a twist backstage that everybody wanted me to win because people don't want Michael to win again, kind of thing. And so there was people which have never been my supporters that all of a sudden were like, "Come on, you've got this, you've got this." And of course that puts even more pressure on because, you know, to knock out Michael, knock out Eruption, which is the one that never loses in a quarter final, would be a dream. And you could tell that I was getting into serious mode because I had, which I'm going to continue now. So I had Sarah, my partner, she's timing, so she's telling me how long to go. And I actually had Ollie next to me, and he was scoring the fight, so you can get a gist of whether you're on top or not. And he's like 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1. And then it got to like, I think it was 30 seconds to go. I know that I've won it. Michael's starting to get a few flips. I'm like, here we go, I'm going to lose it. And I said to Sarah how long to go, and she told me. And I ended up shouting at her. I was so in the zone and so stressed that I shouted. I was like, how long to go, kind of thing.
You Max Verstappen her.
No, I did. And I had to apologise afterwards. She says, you shouted at me. And you never shout at me. I says, I'm sorry.
That's all right. You can use some of the prize money to get her some dinner or something like that. So there we go. But no, it's amazing. And also it was in a one-on-one situation. So there's no one that can get in the way. There's no ganging up on a robot or any of that sort of thing. It's purely down to 1 versus 1. And I think that was fascinating to see. And also to hear that as well, because obviously I'm not aware of that being out the front. With 700 people screaming, it's quite distracting.
I would imagine
that's amazing.
I would imagine if you looked at me and Michael stood there. Obviously, Michael's panicking. You can tell he's panicking because he's trying to drive around. And Eruption, it had gremlins. You know, I think half of the problem was that, like I said before, maybe Eruption's not used to getting flipped so much. And something went. You know, there was one point where I could tell that his low pressure self-right wasn't working from the start because he was somersaulting all over the place. Then at one point, he's spamming the buttons trying to get it to flip, and it wasn't flipping. I think you probably saw it on commentary. You're like, oh my God, Eruption's broken down. It never breaks down.
Yeah.
So that, I think, was a factor. And of course, as a Roboteer, when Michael will have super confidence in his robot. It works relentless. It never fails.
Yeah.
And so, he couldn't get through underneath the front. Even still, though, Michael's a good driver. He was driving around the side. But then for Eruption to have problems, it's like, oh my God, the stars have aligned. I've finally got a break. I finally got some luck that normally Michael would have. Michael's been the guy who would, break down with 9 seconds to go throughout the years. He'd break down in the pits, after a fight kind of thing. And it was just like, wow, actually, maybe this is my year. And of course, once I beat him and I had Ripper 6 through, I was like, okay, there's a potential here, depending on how the draw goes, that we could do really well and get both Rippers through. And then I went into super competitive mode.
Yeah, and getting onto that semi-final, you were up against a different Thor, in the sense of he was driving really differently and he was going about it really differently. But what was fascinating about that fight is, and I hope Jason doesn't think bad of me here, he almost reverted to what he used to done, because you got him so early in that fight, he went back into buckaroo mode and was doing a lot of his slamming around, trying to kill your robot. And I think you managed to take him out of that almost zen state that he'd been in through this whole tournament, and made him go back to some of the sort of, I suppose, the things that would cause him to lose in the past, which was fascinating to watch.
Obviously, the tactics with Thor was we assumed he was going to sit on that floor panel, which he did. He got to his floor panel. That's Jason's floor panel now. I think he needs to sign it as Jason's. I literally woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning worrying about how I was going to beat it because he'd done so brilliantly.
Oh, it was amazing. I was so proud of him.
Yeah, and obviously the tactics are, as I said, forks on the front of certain robots are a hindrance rather than a help, and you can sort of outdrive, which is what Michael does to me, and it's now what I've started doing as well. Same when you're fighting Tectonic, you can fight it slightly different, and you can get around the forks. But the thing is with any axes, which is basically what happened probably with Eruption and Axle, is that if you start turning them over and they're using lots and lots of gas, they are going to freeze up. And what I'm quite good at is getting the momentum when you fight Thor and you've got him upside down, trying to predict where he's going to land so he lands and then you flip him back over. And that's basically what we did. I didn't give him an inch to try and get on his way. And then
he was having to use up. He was bouncing around so much during that fight. Can you just quickly? It's a new phenomena for me. I mean, I've heard it mentioned, but not to this level this year. We talk about freezing up. Can you very quickly, so my head doesn't explode, just explain what that concept is? Because it is something that has affected robots throughout this year more so than I can ever remember.
I think it's affecting them because we're at the top of our game, so you notice it more, and also we're getting lots of explosions and lots of flips. So basically, gas is temperature dependent. On our CO2 systems, you fill your bottle, you've got liquid in there, liquid CO2. As the liquid comes out of the bottle, it drops the temperature and everything. So the more and more gas you use, and if you use the liquid, so when you see a robot that's got white smoke coming out, that's not good for a robot because that's potential stored energy that they're expelling. You don't want the liquid to go through. That's why we have buffer tanks. So you take the liquid out, put it in a buffer tank, and you put it in there. And basically, if you imagine all the valves have got little plungers inside, and they go up and down to let the gas go through. So if you can imagine that the colder and colder it gets, there's a little O-ring in there. It gets hard, it gets stuck, and then it doesn't work. And that's basically what happens the more and more you use it. So at the end of every fight, you'll see that a lot of the gas systems are frozen. And it's interesting, you can see from an engineering point of view, you can see how the system works. So for example, Ripper 6 has 2 buffer tanks. And what I do is I take the gas, I put it into the one buffer, and then I take it out of that buffer tank, take it to another. So it's like a pre-buffer. So it leaves some liquid behind in the first one, and then goes to the next one. And after a fight, you can see how well the system's working because the first one's frozen, but the second one that really counts actually isn't frozen. So it proves that that's how the system works. And then you do things like you put little dip tubes in there so that you're not sucking out the liquid. But of course, you can't cater everything. So if a robot, so Thor, for example, has got its bottles up in the air at sort of 45 degrees, takes the gas out the top. So when he's going around and he's fighting, so when he's fighting ignition and he's not getting flipped over, there's no liquid coming through it. The system's working perfect. Once you start tumbling you upside down, of course, then it's like sucking a straw with your lemonade. You're sucking all the gas, all the liquid out. It starts to freeze, and that's why you know that the same with implosion, same with axle, with all the axes. When you flip them over, they're drawing liquid, and inevitably they're going to freeze up.
There you go. There's me just calling it smashy time, and apparently there's more complex things going on, John.
Well, and also one more thing as well, temperature. So you've got events in the summer like Guildford, you'll get massive flips, whereas in the winter they won't be. So the colder they are, the lower the pressure. So on the full pressure flippers, they won't be as powerful as well.
That's science going on. That's why we love STEM as well, John, isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go. So Thor, you managed to beat them. A great run to the semi-final for Jason. Really good effort. And on the other side of the draw, and at this point, I'm panicking that you're going to win both of them.
You told me you didn't want me to win then.
No, I didn't. Once you got one through, I was praying that you were going to lose because I just was like, people are, look, we've got to be honest about it. People are going to be like, oh, look, John's won both of them. But we couldn't have done that in a million years. It was just the way it worked out. So anyway, we'll get over that now. And you did win, but you were up against Tectonic, and it was a really interesting situation with Will's team because I thought they did really well over the weekend. They were in great spirits as well between Ian and Will. They obviously had to fight each other, and I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to know what one they were kind of focusing on because they did genuinely go out and have a fight. Obviously, Will is a stronger driver than Ian. But Will said to me, if he had have lost or the robot had broke down, it wouldn't have bothered him either way. But he did take Tectonic through. And I thought that was a really interesting choice, because you talked at the top of this about almost like a tournament robot, a robot that's got to be able to be turned around quickly and be durable and all those sort of things. And kind of Tectonic is that robot, because it is that low pressure flipper. It is reliable. It's a bit of a tank. In terms of that process, it's a robot that's designed to do that. So it was never going to be an easy fight going into that competition match against them.
It's an interesting choice that he had to make of which one he wanted to go through. Manta obviously has got a massive flip, working really well. Tectonic, lower pressure but gets more flips. Now, the difference between Ripper 6 and Ripper 8, and why I built it, is that Ripper 8 actually has 2 gas bottles, so it has double the amount of gas inside it. That's why. Ripper 6 before used to always run out of gas. It's now been converted to low pressure. So I'm guessing that he chose Tectonic because it's the longevity, and he knows that he's not going to, Manta's probably going to run out of gas before Ripper 8, assuming they both work. But I think Tectonic is their strongest robot, and it has been for a long time. But I think he made a bit of a mistake, and he's done it before and not learned from it, that he put the forks on, which actually hindered him self-righting. So I think, he'll go away and look at that. But I was there, and his dad's like, "Oh, these forks!" I don't think his dad liked, having the forks on there. And
can I ask you something about that? Because when it was getting flipped over, it seemed heavy, the way that it was coming back over again. And I don't know if that's just a power thing, or it was literally just the balance of the robot being off and it was having trouble doing its self-righting.
It's the weight of the forks on the front.
Right.
Because it's a low pressure flipper, it doesn't have that much power to go over. And you'll see when Ripper 6 is fighting, the same thing. Half the time, it's not flipping robots over, but it's still scoring points for aggression, still getting a point because it's trying to flip. And Tectonic's the same. So when you're fighting Tectonic, you know that if you drive square face to face with it, it's going to flip you, it's going to get a point to the judge. But it's not really going to have enough power to flip you over. And that's the tactics of having whether you go low pressure or go full pressure. You're still scoring points with the judge, but you're not having to make the other robot self-right, which is using their gas. So it's counterproductive, really, and it's hindering yourself because you're using your gas, they're not using their gas.
Yeah.
But yeah, they put the forks on, and then the weight of it, trying to get back over, it was really struggling to get over. And so, of course, he's wasting gas. He's getting minus points with the judge, I assume. And obviously then it gives me time to think about, well, when he does get over, where's he going to be so you can pounce on him again. But, I mean, Will's a great driver. He's up there with all of us. You can't make a mistake with him, and he'll be there and he'll capitalise on it. And towards the end of the fight, he got stronger.
He did. It was really, really tight there. And I know that the team I know they had a good weekend, and I had a lovely message from Will after the event. I know he enjoyed it. And I also know that he's in good spirits in terms of next year. He's already thinking about ways that he can win it. So, he's turned his attention straight to that, which is really, really exciting for us to see what he's going to bring to the table for next year for Team Quake, but also for the championships. But obviously you got the win, which meant I had the PR disaster of 2 Ripper robots in the final.
Yeah.
But once I got over myself, I was genuinely obviously very happy for you. We knew obviously we said before the tournament, if a team robot does make it through from the same team, you have to designate your second driver, which meant you had the lovely situation of being able to bring Ollie back into play.
Yeah.
What was the conversation about who was driving what? Because, we probably guess at that stage Ripper 8 is the stronger robot, but you've got the historical connection with Ripper 6. How did that play out?
There was no conversation. I'm driving Ripper 8. That was it.
And I did have a moment when you both started on your backs. I was like, this better work. If you're trying to be clever and this doesn't work and you just upside down turtles.
That is a little nod to John Lear, who doesn't do robots anymore. He's moved to Spain from Beast. We've done it quite a few times. We've been very successful in the Robo Riots event. We've won it 6 times, and we always said over there that if we got to the stage where we had we had Ripper and Beast in the final, we did it upside down. And I always, once the semi-final draw had been done, and I knew that if I won both, I was going to go in the final, I'd already told Ollie that you'll be driving Ripper 6, and we're starting upside down. It's like, what? Upside down? I was like, yeah. I said, I want to do it as a nod to John Lear, and it's funny. and of course all the pressure's off. It didn't matter. We could have some fun.
Yeah. No, it was lovely.
But we went hell for leather. I said to Ollie, you're driving Ripper 6. These are the forks. You choose whatever configuration you want. So we pinched some forks from Axel. Clive and Alex, annoyingly, they packed their toolboxes. They went in their car. They got TR4 forks. They were seeing if they could get them on there because all of a sudden, again, no one wants me to win. They want Ollie to win. I don't really care. It would have been quite funny, but it would have been soul destroying that, my son beats me with my Leicester.
Yeah, you'd always have that over you.
Yeah, it would be bragging rights kind of thing. But there were some lovely interviews with Ollie. It's like, what made my heart melt was like, yeah, my dad's great. I don't think I've ever had so many cuddles from him throughout that day. And he's like, my dad deserves it, and I don't want to take away his glory. But Clive and Alex weren't thinking that when they were seeing how they could get the forks on there. And so we went for it. There was no.
They are the naughty schoolboys backstage,
They
John.
are.
You know that.
They are. But there was no team orders. We went for it full on, and as it happened, it didn't last very long, and I got that massive flip, and it was in the flame pit, and then that was it.
It was the ultimate finish to the fight with that theatrical end there into the fire pit. And I'm going to say it now. I've got a bit of acid though, so I don't know if I can't say it, John.
What is it? Go on. What is it?
John, you became the Extreme Robots TV champion.
And you've got to say it all next year.
Yeah, I've got to say it all next year. I might just have a button that I press. Just sort of dubbed in. I'll get somebody else to say it.
You are the champion. I'm going to milk it.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I'm going to suffer as a result of it, but that's fine. That's fine. It's my retirement year. It's all good. So you are the champion, and obviously you have won things throughout the year. As I know, I make that joke, and it was quite a long time ago, and I didn't have grey hair, but you have won a lot over the years. Where does this fit into that list of successes that you've had?
It's up there, to be honest. I mean, the first time I won the UK champs in 2011, a long time ago. That's obviously the first one. That's always the special one. And that was actually your first event as well, if you remember.
It was, I was in my 20s, John. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. This one, it's been a long time where I've been disillusioned with robots. I haven't had time to fix the robots. And my goal this year was to focus and to see if I didn't necessarily need to win, but I wanted to reassert myself as being, at the top. And maybe I've never really not been at the top, but, I've had quite a hard couple of years and not really won anything major. This one's special because of where our shows are, because of the audiences, because of the Extreme Robots team and all the hard work of the camera crew, the fact that we now have social media and it's out there. And obviously it has a knock-on effect now to going into schools. I can go into schools as a champion rather than having to show the videos from 2011 like I normally do, But really what it does, it motivates me now for next year. Ollie's motivated, and there's only one thing left now, and that's to take the team's battle out, away from Michael.
Well, I was going to ask about next year, and you've kind of done it for me already, mate. You can have my job as well now. So, it's really exciting, and it was great to see the record numbers, legitimate record numbers that we've had at every venue this year, culminating in obviously what we had in Gloucester, which is really exciting because not just for us, it's great obviously for Extreme Robots, but it means that there's still a lot of life and a lot of growth that can still be made in British robot combat.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what you've got to remember is that as much as we enjoy doing our hobby and fighting the robots, without the audience and without the cheering, without the production, we wouldn't have any way to do it. So yes, I'm a part of, behind the scenes director, but I'm a roboteer, and if we were doing it without all those audience and without the production, even what was really nice was going out the front. We do it once a year at Gloucester to have all the roboteers out there so that they can all get some recognition as well. Because normally it's just the captains that go out there. But we have an army of people, the crew that built the arena, Alex and Neil and Dan and Ollie who are moving robots around, and Angela, all the people, the merchandise, Jackie on the front. There's an army of people within our crew that don't get the recognition, but they're like the cogs that keep the machine working. And then and then the presenters as well, having Danny on board. I mean, he's great. We love Danny. There's a little slogan going on the back of the robot next year, which I promised him, because the slogan's all about the Crocs. So he didn't wear his Crocs to one event, and I didn't and I was losing. The next show, we put them on and I started winning. So that's it. We got this little slogan. It's all about the Crocs. There's a little nod
There you go.
on the back of the robot. But it's what we do. You know, we love messing about with the robots. It's our hobby. It motivates us, obviously, winning. It motivates you when you have a great event. And I know that all the roboteers, I've already had messages from Michael saying, don't get used to having the belts and coming back for it.
Brilliant stuff. It's going to be really exciting. I can't believe we're already thinking about 2026, which is going to be a great year. And if you're watching this, you can get your tickets at extremerobots.co.uk/tickets. And of course, keep supporting us on Extreme Robots TV. John, you are, I'm going to say it again, sorry, the Extreme Robots TV champion. Congratulations, mate. You deserve it. You worked so hard and we're really proud of you. And let's see if you can keep it next year, mate. Welcome to the new home of mechanised combat. Extreme Robots TV is your one-stop shop for Europe's biggest and best robot combat show. And it's now available to download as an app on the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. With the Extreme Robots TV app, you can create custom playlists, chat to other fans in the XR Army, and get the latest thoughts from roboteers using the community feature. Download and watch the action wherever you are, whenever you want. If you want to watch it on the biggest TV in your house, you can with screen sharing. Simply create an account at www.extremerobots.tv, download the app, and you're ready to go. So, if you want to experience the legends of Robot Wars clashing with the very best of modern combat robotics, download the Extreme Robots TV app for free today.